You know that video that I have on this channel about 3 really wealthy social workers, and I share with you some of their strategies for building wealth? Well, week after week, that video continues to be one of my most popular and most watched. And so I figured if you like that, there's plenty more where that came from. So in this video, I'm introducing you to 3 new people who've been trained in social work and show you the things that they've done to leverage their social work knowledge, values, and skills for millions of dollars. You ready to meet them? Let's see if we can get 1,000 likes on this video. Here we go. Hi, and welcome back to Rich Social Worker. I'm Eva Ford, social worker, mindset mentor, and coach. And on this channel, we talk all about money, mindset, and motivation to help you live your richest life. So if the topics of making a bigger impact while you're making a bigger income are important to you, consider subscribing and turn on the notification bell so that you know every week when I upload a new video. Now, we are going to get straight into it because we got a lot of ground to cover, and I actually want to hear from you because we're not going to be able to cover everything. But if you want another video highlighting some more really wealthy tips from the people that I'm going to share with you today, let me know. I will do a part 2. But for today, we're going to start off with a therapist named Allison Puryear. Now, I don't usually highlight therapists on this channel only because I assume that social workers are already familiar with the entrance into entrepreneurship through private practice. But this particular therapist does something very unique. Allison has a business called Abundance Practice Builders, where she helps other clinicians create their private practice. Now, the lesson number 1 from Allison's wealth journey is in the name Abundance Practice Building, because Allison comes from a place of abundance. And I know that it's typical for social workers and other helping professionals not necessarily to come from a place of abundance, but to come from a place of lack. Honestly, we talk about not having enough money, not having enough jobs, not having enough of the right kind of clients. And when we have this conversation, we have this mindset, then what ends up happening is we have the experiences of lack, and it just really makes for a miserable career and a miserable experience in social work, which is unfortunate. Allison said she has not had that experience because she's always had this mindset of abundance, and she wanted to make that front and center for her organization as well. And so she named it Abundance Practice Builders. And I want to challenge you to pay attention to the conversations that you're having, pay attention to the thoughts that you're having about where you are, about the opportunities that are presenting themselves. Are you coming from a place of lack, or are you coming from a place of abundance, in that there's more than enough for everyone, in that you can have it the way you want it, how you want it? It may not be today, it may not be right now, but coming from a place that you can figure it out, or you can meet someone, or it can come to you in the way that you would like, or even better than you would like. And so that's the first lesson that we want to learn and follow from Allison, is to come from this place of abundance and see what shows up. The second thing that we can learn from Allison is that she gave herself a job early on. Now, on YouTube, she did an interview that I will put in the description below. But in that interview, she talks about how in 90 days, she made 90 new connections.
And so I just networked like crazy. Mm-hmm. And whenever I talk to introverts about this, I watch them cringe. And this is not something I recommend for anybody who's not an outgoing extrovert in a new city who has no friends yet. But I networked with 90 people in 90 days. I just set this goal, and I had them set up before I even moved, like the first couple weeks of them.
Yes.
Just networked like a crazy person, which was great because I got to know the city, because I'd be like, I'll come to you. And I got to meet all sorts of amazing people, many of whom are still really, really close friends. So it didn't just help me build my business, it also helped me build my community.
She literally gave herself a job to the point where she had to start turning away people because she was getting so many referrals. And I know for new and aspiring social workers who might be here or listening to this, it can be really frustrating when you're trying to apply for jobs that ask you for experience. And so this is a really good lesson that we can learn from Allison. You give yourself the experience. You let people know what your skills are, what your services are. How many of us are really willing to network with new people, 90 new people in 90 days? And oftentimes it's really a numbers game. So the more people know who you are, know where you are, know what products or services you have, and know what you offer, the more they can refer to you. And Allison talks about how she was able to build her network so well that many of those people are even friends to this day. So lesson number 2 from Allison: give yourself a job and be sure to network and let people know your value. The third thing that Allison did really well is she built a community. If you check out Abundance Practice Builders on Facebook, that community has over 19,000 members in it. And not only did she build this community, but she also uses this community to help her understand how to serve the community better. So I've been in that community for years, and I saw a survey that she did a couple months ago asking her members how best she could serve them. And when you build a community, then you are able to find out what your audience needs from you, what they want from you, and create that. In business, we say, if you want to make a lot of money, just find a need of a lot of people and serve them. And so we know, of course, it's not just about the money, but on this channel, we're not afraid to talk about the money either. But we lead with service, and that's exactly what Allison does. And you can do the same thing. It may take a little time. It's not something that she did overnight, but once you do find your audience, find your community, if you build it and you ask them what they need and you meet their needs, you can also be successful as an entrepreneur. Now, the second trained social worker I want to introduce you to is Stacy Madison. Now, you may not be familiar with her name, but you might be familiar with her pita chips. That's right. Stacy, a trained clinical social worker, is also the founder of Stacy's Pita Chips. Not just that, Stacy's Juice Bar and Be Bold Bars, which is her newest endeavor with her brother. Now, Stacy has shared her story of Stacy's Pita Chip success on many platforms online. And so I encourage you to check them out and really listen to her story. But one of the things that she did is she got out of social work.
When I first started, I started as a clinical social worker. My dad was a psychologist, and my mom was teaching. And so, I think going into psychology and social work was easy. I didn't totally know what I wanted to do. And so I just did what was easy for me. And so that's really the path I went down initially. And what I realized is that, after I went through a lot of schooling and my master's degree and getting licensed, is that I really wasn't very happy seeing patients and, in private practice and it just really wasn't my thing.
This is a lesson for those of you who may find yourself burnt out, no longer happy, or like Stacy, who said that, social work and therapy was just something she fell into because it was easy for her. But if you find at some point on your journey that you no longer love it, that it's no longer your passion, it no longer lights you up, listen to me. You have permission to leave the profession, leave social work, because otherwise you run the risk of doing harm, not only to your clients, but especially to yourself. Social work is a profession that really requires a lot of you emotionally, mentally, sometimes even physically. And if it's not something that you're passionate about or want to do anymore, then leave. I don't think there should be any judgment for people who make that decision. Listen, life can be long, and it's too long, I believe, to stay in something that you no longer are in love with. So Stacy did that for herself. She made the courageous step to leave and to follow what she was learning more about and what she loved, which was the natural food and health movement. So again, you have permission to leave the profession if it's not serving you and if you're not serving others. Now, something else Stacy did early on is she got business advice. And that was critical for her success.
When I first started, when we were making the pita chips, I thought that I needed $20,000 for a packaging machine. But after I did the business plan, I realized I needed $20,000 for the machine, and then I needed $20,000 for the bags to put the chips in. And then I needed another $20,000 for this working capital kind of thing. So all of this you don't learn when you're going to get your social work degree. So I did 8 weeks. Each week was a different chapter of the business plan, and it ended with being able to pitch it to a bank.
As we talk about on this channel, if you get business advice, if you get coaching, if you can follow the path of someone who's been there before and done that before, it's going to shorten your learning curve. Trust me, you're going to make enough mistakes on your own. So why make them all? Get some business advice just like Stacy did. And through getting that business advice, she was able to create a business plan, ultimately get it funded, and was able to grow her pita chip company so that in the end, Pepsi ended up buying it for $250 million. And so I always find it so interesting that social workers are ready to, pay for CEUs or pay for that license or pay for that book. But when it comes to anything outside of social work that would help you grow, it's harder for us to wrap our heads around paying for that, like paying for coaching or paying for a mentorship or paying for a program. And so I really want us to get out of that frame of mind and start putting more value where value is due. Not to say that there's not value in getting up-level training in social work as well, but it's not to say there's not value in getting training outside of social work so that you can amplify what you are doing as a social worker. And that's what Stacy did early on, and you should do it too. And by the way, Stacy gives millions away in charitable efforts every year. And she rightly says, by putting yourself in a more stable position, you're going to be able to do that much more for others. And I couldn't agree more. Last, but certainly not least, is Rae Roberts. Now, if you've never heard of Rae, you've probably seen some of her art somewhere. She's been able to successfully license it to wall art and mats and pillows and all kinds of things. And she started from a place of self-care. That's right, she was actually a clinical medical social worker for about a decade. And through the process of self-care, art, painting, she was able to find a new path, a new passion to healing, to self-development, to self-awareness. And she's created this empire. And so I know we talk a lot about self-care in the social work profession, but I don't know how many of us actually take it seriously because listen, we say it all the time, but it's so true. If you're not well for yourself, you can't be well for anyone else. And I think if anything, this pandemic has shown us that to be the case. So many social workers have found themselves dealing with anxiety and frustration and depression. And listen, social work is hard enough as it is. And so you've got to be well for yourself. And Rae was intentional about finding something, connecting with something that would give her that outlet and that joy. And so I really want to emphasize that it's so important and you've got to do the same thing too. And it's led her to these multiple millions in dollars. And if you go on her website, Rae is very intentional about how she still talks about social work. It's clear. And she even makes it a point to speak to social workers on her website when she says, artists and social workers have more in common than you might think. An important part of my journey was realizing that I hadn't abandoned my former social worker self. I was still listening, sharing, healing, navigating messy emotions, making an impact, except I was now using my art, classes, and retreats instead of a clipboard in a hospital. Same message, new medium. And that is exactly the message that we're trying to get across here on Rich Social Worker. You've got the social work skills. You've already got the degree or you're pursuing the degree. Let those skills define you. Let those skills use you and navigate you to your right path. Don't worry about the title of social worker. Find what lights you up. And for some of us, we will end up staying in a traditional, maybe a clinical social work job. But for many others of us, we will use those same skills, that same knowledge, those same values to create even more impact, more wealth, and help even more people. And so I just don't want you to limit yourself because you think you've got to follow one path. You don't. Just like Rae, Every entrepreneur has to learn how to be a creator as opposed to a consumer. And that's what Kelly Rae has done. She is a creator of art, not just art, but opportunities. She's a creator of just many different ways for people to not only connect with her, but to find and light up joy within themselves. And if you're on an entrepreneurial path, that's a mindset shift that you may have to make yourself. People will need to buy something from you, and most times that's something that would have come from you that you would have created. So think about that as you're on your entrepreneurial journey. What might you create? What might you give to people that you could then earn a profit from and help other people as well? What did you think about these 3 new social workers and their lessons for wealth and success? I want to hear them in the comments. If anything stood out for you, let me know. And if you'd like another part 2 video on some of the things I wasn't able to share with you, let me know that too. I'm happy to do it for you. Thanks so much for being here. I believe you can dream, be, do, or have anything you want. You know it starts with your mindset, so make sure it's a rich one. See you in the next video.